Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. Hi, Doug. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. I've mentioned this before, but I don't know. I wear this black and it's so dreary and I see this beautiful bright background and I just feel very grateful and very thoughtful, actually, that we are here doing this show, which is stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity.
Yeah, it's and first off, I think is welcome to our listeners and viewers all over the world. And we welcome you to, and thank you for, for being part of our show today and hopefully contributing as we go along in the show as well. And I know Dr. JACALYN will probably mention, but we would welcome any of you to come and join us as a guest on the show and be part of the conversation that we're about to have.
Absolutely. We welcome you to join us. Go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, book your session, and just look for stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. So, Doug, for those who are not familiar with you, you've been working with clients for years and helping people understand what their journey is and what their purpose is, and also so many other topics. But tell us a little bit about your work as an international certified competent mentor.
What it involves is, working with, and basically it comes back to the definition of mentoring, which is a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee are going to learn and grow on a personal and professional basis. So there's always that aspect of the personal side of the relationship that, as I typically describe to people, is if we can't get the personal growth side in order, it's going to become an obstacle or barrier for us to move forward with your career development or your professional growth side of things. So I work with people internationally. So I'm working with entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. As one example, I'm working with U.S. military personnel transitioning from military to civilian life with an organization in the U.S. American Corporate Partners is the organization, so work with them. And here in Canada, I'm working with an organization that provides mentoring to young entrepreneurs who are wanting to start. They've got a vision and they want to turn the vision into something that's reality. And so part of what I do is I work with them to help them go on a bit of a journey to realize the success of turning their vision into reality. And then I'm also working with organizations to provide mentoring for their leadership teams. And then I work with individuals on a one-to-one basis outside of those two or three different examples that I've given you, where I work with people who are just looking to maybe move forward with their life and with their professional growth. And then finally, the last aspect is from a mentoring perspective is I work with people who are struggling with mental health and post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, and grief. Grief has sort of kind of jumped to the forefront of of where a lot of the time that I'm spending is working with people who are struggling with the healing process, the healing journey, and just being there for them to sort of lean on from time to time, and to have those conversations so that they feel comfortable moving forward.
And it's great work that you're doing, Doug, and so valued. So thank you for doing that. And I'd love for you to walk this journey with me of how we can find our purpose, find our passion. I know for me, it took probably, I just turned 60, it took 57 years, I think. And it was interesting because a psychic who's actually a friend, maybe 15, 20 years ago, said to me, one day you're going to be on the red carpet. That's where you belong. And I haven't been on a red carpet, but yet I'm in that industry. So it's kind of funny that there was a foreshadowing that she saw it. At the time, I didn't really believe it, but I do now. So I'm going to go out and buy a red carpet and I'm going to stand on it. How about you, Doug? When did you realize that you had found your passion, your purpose?
I was doing the mentoring, and I knew that there was more to mentoring than what I was doing, and I knew that there was something that was there for me that was more than what I had thought of at that particular time. And so for me, what it was two things. Number one, I needed to get confirmation somehow, somewhere, someplace that healing was part of my purpose, or was my purpose. And to be able to do that, I wanted the validation that, okay, moving forward, that what you're doing or what you're telling everyone that you want to be able to do is the healing part. And so I needed that validation or verification. And then the other part was, and this is something that's quite I encourage people who are searching for their purpose, is to not only to, go through that process, but the other part is, for me, what was important was, where the knowledge that I have today, where did that come from? And the same thing I encourage, all of our listening audience, listening and viewing audience, to be able to sort of, you need to ask the question, where did that knowledge come from? How did I get to today where I'm able to do X, Y, Z, for example, and have the ability to be able to do that? And what I ended up doing, and I don't share this too horribly often, just because people have a tendency to not believe, which is one, and number two, sort of see that as kind of a little bit left of center, so to speak. And so to each his own. For me, it's worked, and it's done what I had hoped it would do. I went to a hypnotherapist, and I was actually mentoring the hypnotherapist. And one of the things that she had said was that for you to better understand what it is that I'm doing, you need to experience hypnosis. And at that particular time point in my life, my good wife, Deborah, was still alive, and she was absolutely not in favor of me doing this. And in fact, she had this vision or image, we won't call it a vision, we'll call it an image, of me running down the boulevard here in the city with no clothes on after being hypnotized. And of course, as we all know, that's nothing but, that would be further from the truth. And so we eventually came to a compromise where I explained the process a little bit more and said, it's not the typical hypnosis thing that you would see or encounter, where they have you up on stage and have you barking like a dog and all these other things. This is actually part of, it's a therapy, it's a healing process. And so I got her to a place where she was kind of okay. So I went. So I went to the hypnotherapist, and we ended up agreeing that I would go through a past life regression process. And what that basically did was, for me, was we ended up going to 3 different lives that I had obviously been part of. And in each and every one of those situations, when the hypnotherapist would say to me, can you tell me what it is that you do in this, where you are right now? And in all cases, all 3 times I said, I'm a healer. And she kind of asked, what do you mean by that? And I said, I'm a healer. I make people feel better. And it was interesting because in one of the situations, we went to a small village where, as I was walking down the street and I had some people with me, I think it was my guardian angel and a couple other people. But as I was walking, people were running up to me and just wanting to touch. And that was it, touch me and then run away. And I actually had this young boy, and I can still, to this very, very day, I can still see him looking up with these big, beautiful eyes, looking up into my eyes. And I could see all this pain and anguish and all this negativity that he had absorbed. And I remember reaching out and putting my hand on his head and just pausing there for seconds, minutes. The time doesn't really matter. Just I put my hand on his head, and then I looked in his eyes, and it was gone. The pain, the anguish, all of that was gone. And he looked up and he smiled, and he turned around and he walked away. And that was part of the process that I needed: validation, verification, use those 2 words, to be able to validate that, yes, you are intended to, that's your purpose in life, is to be a healer and to be able to move forward with that. And it was similar. There was confirmation of the fact that my purpose is to be a healer. My confirmation came in each one of those lives, and they spanned a number of time frames that I had supposedly been experiencing in my past lives.
Wow, that's truly fascinating. You hadn't shared that to that level before, so I appreciate that. When you're doing the healing, where do you think the pain goes? Do you absorb it?
Yeah, you do. And that's where the self-care comes into place. And, it's kind of like, I remember a friend of mine ended up going to a medicine man and shared with me this, what they had observed going through this process, where the medicine man was helping this individual cure himself of cancer, and how they went into the healing lodge and went through a process where excuse me, where the medicine man was actually absorbing, drawing out the poison out of that person's body and taking it into themselves, and then having to discharge or get rid of that as the healing process went on. And I believed in that was something that could definitely take place, but I didn't understand it as much until I went through and experienced the past life regression myself, because everything that I just shared was extremely vivid. Like I said, I could still see that young boy with the dark hair looking up into my eyes. And, it's like in our other show where we talk about grief and stuff like that, some of the images that I've had to deal with while I was in service with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I have those visions today, very vivid visions, and it's much the same as this when it came to, the past life regression.
It's interesting because when people have shared the types of experiences that you've shared with me, many, many years ago, I kind of was like, whoa, I don't know about that. But as time's gone on and I've interviewed more people, I become more open and more heart centric. And so I am in alignment with everything that you described, but there are definitely people out there who are watching or listening who may not be. What would you have to say to them?
I, with the fullest amount of respect possible, I respect, the decision to not believe. And I wish that it was as easy as saying, well, why don't you just go and experience it and give it a try? And that's a huge leap of faith, just because that Doug guy that, is on the internet said that, we should do this doesn't mean you're going to go running to the nearest hypnotherapist. But I know from having experienced what she did, what she was capable of doing, I was in tears. She brought me to tears a couple times where I was concerned for my life. We went to a village again. We were going to go to a village, and I wouldn't go. I said, I don't want to go because something bad will happen. And I started to cry. And she said, why are you crying? And I said, well, I'm afraid that if I go there, something bad will happen to me, and then I don't know what I'll do. And so that part of it demonstrated to me that to be able to open your subconscious up and to be able to let some of that stuff out, that helped demonstrate that there's more to this than kind of, wave the magic wand and throw the fairy dust or the pixie dust and all that sort of stuff. There is substance to this. And so for me, anytime somebody says, how do you know what your purpose is? I can say, this is what it is, and this is what I went through to be able to validate. And this is the results of that validation, where I had 3 different lives that we went to, and this is or was the outcome that came as a result of that. So do I know what my purpose is? Yes, I sure do. And it fits in quite nicely with everything else that I'm doing today. What's interesting is that when I did the past life regression, I was mentoring people, but I wasn't doing it to the extent that I am today. And I definitely didn't have the factors of where I work with people with mental health, and I'm championing the cause for mentors to be part of the support structure for mental health. That wasn't even on the table at that particular stage until we went through the past life regression process, and I actually got to see that myself.
Doug, when we don't know what our purpose is or our passion is, how can that impact us physically, spiritually, emotionally?
The big thing, I think, with all of that, if we don't know what our purpose is, I kind of look at it as a ship without a rudder out in the middle of the ocean, and it's traveling aimlessly from one bank to the other, kind of going with no sense of direction is probably the best word to use. And it's important that we have that sense of direction. So I think that, people need to, excuse me, one of the things that I'm going to suggest to our listening and viewing audience is that if you can find a mentor who can sit down and have a conversation with you about your purpose, because I do that even today, where I will, as part of my mentoring process, I ask those questions, and I ask people, what's your purpose? What is it that you do today that excites you to get up in the morning and go to work? And do you do that on a consistent basis so that it does become part of who you are as an individual? And it's also something that you do without thinking. It becomes, like for me, the mentoring and mentoring as a whole in the broadest sense, as well as mentoring with mental health issues and stuff like that. That I don't even have to think about that anymore, because I just know that my purpose is to be a healer and to help those individuals to heal, to go on their healing journey. And that's the part that, that I deal with on a day-to-day basis in a consistent fashion.
Thank you, Doug. What are some of the things that keep us from finding our purpose and our passion? And I'll just throw one of them out there: money.
That's money's always gets in the way, but that's definitely one of the things is money. There's also the aspect of self-doubt. I don't, I've had people who have said that, well, why should I even try and figure out what my purpose is? Because does anyone really care? And, that's where the mentor needs to turn that around into a positive and say, well, I care, and I'd like to work with you let's go together and let's find that purpose that makes you excited to want to get out of bed in the morning. So it's a matter of, doing it from that perspective. I also have seen people that, like we've said, number one, don't believe in themselves. And number two, that feel that they're not worthy. So, I don't deserve to know what my purpose is, and or for that matter, to even go on a journey to try and figure it out. I don't deserve to do that. So, excuse me. I know when I went on trying to figure it out, I started out, as a young high school farm boy, and I thought that being a radio announcer, radio disc jockey was it, boy. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And that story didn't last very long, because, I ended up making these trips, and I think they were about 60 or 65 miles from our home to the nearest radio station. And I would go up on weekends, and I remember going through that whole process. But that wasn't the purpose. That wasn't my purpose. And I, very soon realized this isn't for me. And then lo and behold, I end up getting a job as a security officer in a shopping mall, and then at a potash mine, and realized shortly after that little journey that that's not my purpose. And so then the next segment in my chapter of my life was to join the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which at that stage, that was my purpose. And actually, when you think of it, being a healer actually fit in quite nicely with what I did with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So, you're working in small communities, and you're involved, you're helping people deal with issues. The young lad that I worked with, and, who ended up death by suicide, and I was working with him and stuff like that, not in a formal or true sense of mentoring, but just to help him become the best that he could be. So, and so my time in the RCMP was time well spent. And then once I left that and got into private sector, and then back into government, and then private sector, where I became more of a mentor from the purest sense. So definitely wanting to mentor and help other people. And part of that process was understanding what mentoring was, and the fact that it also fit quite nicely in what I now know, or what I knew then, was the aspect of you are a healer and you're here on this earth to help people heal and understand their purpose and move forward and be the best that they can be no matter where they are.
Thanks, Doug. You actually touched on something I was going to ask you about. You mentioned that when you were a police officer, that you were also healing in a way. And so even though we might not know our exact purpose during our journey, we're acquiring skills and knowledge that may ultimately be sort of like our backpack filled with being of service. And then we finally see the light and understand what being in service means.
Definitely. And, the how I looked at it was, even with doing the past life regression, each one of those lives I picked up, using the sort of the toolkit or the tool bag idea. Each one of those lives that I experienced, I took away from that experience some tools that I could put in my toolkit to use maybe in the next life. Or, long story short, all of those lives and all of those tools have given me what it is I need today to be able to be that healer and work with people, in all different aspects of their career, their life, and, work with people who are struggling, that are dealing with mental health and all those things. So you accumulate the wisdom and knowledge and the tools to be able to define your purpose, and also to be in a place where you can change or alter your purpose based on the things that you are encountering in life as you move forward.
Thank you, Doug. I'm wondering, is there a direct correlation to understanding what your purpose is and being of service? And what I mean by that is, when we figure out why we're here, right? When we all of a sudden, like, wow, this is the whole reason that I'm here. When I leave this earth, this is the legacy I'm going to leave. I feel that there's some connection with realizing that it's more than just about me. It's more about me being here for others, as opposed to being kind of lost and just going through life, getting a paycheck or punching a time clock, whatever the case may be. Do you think there's any correlation between those two?
I think that for some folks, that what you had described, and kind of, we'll use the ship in the ocean wandering aimlessly. I think that that is the case. There are some folks that, for them, their sense of purpose has very little to do with being of service to others. And there are people that's what it's all about. The whole purpose, the sense of purpose, it's all about being of service to others. So, helping someone navigate their mental health journey that they're on, and being able to deal with that. I firmly believe that for a purpose to be meaningful, that you have to understand what it's all about, and that it has to have that service component as part of it in order for you to really truly get the full sense of what having a purpose is all about. Because we can take a number of different approaches, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have that sense of, and here's a catchword for you, fulfillment, if you are not able to be of service to others. And that can, to others can include your family, that can your close friends, that can include, co-workers in the workplace, that can include a number of different people. But it's being of service to those folks, so that they're able to take advantage of all the years of learning that you have had, in my case, 3 lifetimes, for people to take advantage of that, to be able to move forward with their vision, their purpose, and to be able to make a difference in the world today.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug, I've heard people say, I'd like to know what my purpose is, but I don't have time. I'm so busy with the grind and with life. How am I going to figure it out? I don't have time to take off to, to go figure this out. I don't have time to go meet with a mentor. I've got to do my work and take care of my family and keep the lights on.
You know, one of the things I'd suggest you do is every morning, and here we go with Doug and his yellow Post-it notes again, but is take those yellow Post-it notes and put them on the mirror and ask yourself the question, you know, before I head out the door and off to work and who knows what catastrophe I'm going to be dealing with, what is my purpose? What is it that excited me to get up this morning? And if it's a paycheck, then that could very well be your purpose for the next little while is I'm just going to get out of bed, hopefully, and go to work and make a paycheck, because part of my purpose is to put a roof over my family's head and food on the table. That's why I exist. And so that's one sort of person. You'll have another one who can say, well, I can do that, but I can also do this on top of that. And I can help others. I can volunteer to do work at, you know, at the community center or the community hall. I can volunteer to do this or I can do that. And I know by doing that, I'm making a difference in whoever's lives we touch. So, you know, there's that part that you could actually do, and that still can be part of your purpose. So look at it from the aspect of, you know, my purpose is to put the roof over my head and food on the table, but also to make sure that people in the community, or however you want to word it, but to make sure that they are able to move forward with realizing their purpose. So as you know, when you start to take a look at purpose, it has kind of like, it's like a circle, and it touches so many different people, so many different ways, that somebody who says, I don't really have a purpose. Yeah, you do. You're actually in the midst of it. You just don't realize it.
Thank you. And something else I'd like to just have you touch on before we close out is, there are people who go through life doing the same thing over and over and over again, never really questioning it because that's what their parents did. That's what their neighbors do. Is there a necessity when you're in that kind of hamster wheel grind to actually stop and get off and say, wait, let me look at my life? Or is there no real value because you're just heads down, keep going and going?
You know, I always tell people, even, you know, young entrepreneurs that I'm working with, you know, I always ask them, you know, the question, is this what we want to do? And, you know, every once in a while, we need to sort of step off that treadmill and just ask ourselves, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? You know, I've got some folks that I'm working with right now that that very same question is coming up. Their sense of purpose, we understand what that is, and it's a very meaningful sense of purpose. But underneath all of that, there are overtures that it probably isn't the purpose that they want to have for the foreseeable future. And so then we need to sort of revisit what it is that, you know, that you're doing today. And with that, you know, with that in mind, taking a deeper look at your sense of purpose that's in place today. And if we need to make some adjustments or changes, then we should be doing that with the understanding that things could change again. So it can become, until we get to that special place, it can become that treadmill, you know, like the hamster on the wheel, that we're going to just be on there and we'll be pedaling away madly because we haven't quite found what excites us to get out of bed in a positive context. to get out of bed in the morning. And until we get to that stage, we're going to be on that treadmill, and then we need to step off and sort of say, okay, what do I need to change in my life, or what do I need to do that's going to help me figure out even more so what my purpose really is.
And Doug, what does an engagement with you look like for the mentoring services that you offer? Can someone say, hey, I only have 2 hours, or I only have X dollars, or what does it look like?
You know, for me, when it comes to that, is I customize my approach, and obviously money is part of that. I customize it to, as best I possibly can, meet the needs, and that includes all those things that you mentioned, to meet the needs of the person who would like to engage with me. So there's, you know, I just keep moving us forward to be able to do that. So yeah, it's, each situation stands on its own, and I prefer to deal with it that way rather than, you know, I'm a firm believer in, I can customize our solution that's going to meet your needs, whether that includes money and everything else, without us having to have, you know, well, let me put it this way. At the end of the day, if there's an impasse, then we're probably not a good match for each other.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Can you share with our audience the way that people can reach out to you, and then also, are you taking on new clients?
So I'll do that in reverse order. Yes, I am taking on new clients. So if what we talked about today appeals to you, please feel free to reach out to me, and you can do that through my website, which is www.TalentC. So the word talent with the letter C on the end.ca. Go to the contact page and just fill in the details and send it off to me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But an easier approach for you is to just email me direct at doug.lawrence, that's LAWRENCE, at TalentC. So the word talent with the letter C on the end.ca, and I'll get back to you right away. And if nothing else, we can have a brief discussion about, you know, how we might work together, or maybe we won't work together. But at the end of the day, we might be able to share some ideas or tools on things that you might be able to do in lieu of a full-time engagement with myself. And we'll see where that ends up taking us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. And thank you to our audience. Again, we invite you to come and join us, to book yourself in so you can tell your story. And Doug, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the other show we do together, as we invite people to join us there as well.
Most definitely. So your story, your grief, your journey is, our show is primarily focused on the dealing with grief. So, and grief can come in a number of different ways. And so it's a matter of us sharing the story, how grief impacts our family or our person or me as an individual. And then what are some of the things we need to do in order to help each and every one of us on our healing journey when we're trying to deal with grief and all the aspects of it. So it's it's a powerful show in that we share some, you know, very personal things. And I encourage you that if, you know, talking about grief, which for me is therapeutic, and so the more times I get to tell my story, so to speak, the better it helps me with, it's therapeutic, and it helps me to be able to continue on my healing journey and move forward. So great show. I encourage you to reach out and, you know, become a guest on our show, or even for that matter is to listen to the show and provide feedback as the show goes along. And we'll be more than delighted to answer questions and stuff for you at that time point.
Thanks so much, Doug. And you're also an international best-selling author. Your book is You're Not Alone. Do you happen to have your book with you?
I do.
Perfect. Could you show it to our audience and then maybe read something from it?
Yeah, there's You Are Not Alone, #1 bestseller. And I can... So I learned that behind a lot of closet doors are human beings that are crying for help, but afraid to open that door and reach out for help. They are afraid what society will label them as. I learned that mental health is a silent pandemic with a horrible outcome if the support structure does not engage. I've lost too many wonderful people due to a faltering and failing support structure. It doesn't have to be that bad. We can make a difference and change the gloomy outcome that is before us. Through having trained mentors certified to work with people struggling with mental health issues, we can provide that ear to listen and be heard. We can provide the support that is sadly missing today. We as mentors are not there to prescribe or diagnose, but to listen and hear and be that person that they can rely on. Someone will ask questions and guide us on our journey or on our path to healing. You see, though, through all the research that I've done and from the practical application of proper mentoring tools and techniques, I have determined without a doubt that mentoring can and will be part of that support structure for mental health. The Journey Mentor can and will make a difference. All we need now is for you to open that closet door, reach out, ask for help, and grab the hand that is offered. Your journey, your path to healing begins now.
Wow, so powerful, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you for writing that, and thanks for reading it. Where can people get your book?
So the book is available on Amazon, amazon.com and amazon.ca. And you can just go to either one of those websites and the book is there.
All right. Thank you again for another spectacular show. I do appreciate it, as does our audience. We'll be playing the show again later today. And if you want to see it in its entirety, please go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV. There's a playlist there titled Your Story. Oh my gosh, wrong show. Well, there is, yes, Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey, and also Stories of Hope. And you can find our shows there. So please go and have a look. Doug, any last words as we close out today?
No, it's been it's been a good journey.
Good. Fantastic. And I would encourage all of you out there, if you don't feel like you're walking in your passion, if you don't feel like you found your purpose, reach out to Doug. He's right here. He wants to work with you. And at a minimum, contact him on LinkedIn, email him, go to his website. That's why he's here. He has a lot of things he could be doing, but he's here to be of service. So thank you again, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, we'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining us. And I look forward to, hopefully you're going to come in and book as guests because we want you to be part of this journey. So thanks again. Bye, Doug. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.